Yo, what's going on guys? HyperX here. Welcome back to another video for Wild Hearts, and today I want to talk about the Kemono, the monsters that you fight in the game. It's really nice that a lot of you guys have been giving Wild Hearts a chance. Looking at all the comments, some of you guys have been getting really excited about the game. And well, of course, at the moment there are still lots of unknowns. The game is in its early stages and does still need some polish. It definitely has a ton of potential and has been a really fun game from our time going hands-on. And I think a lot of you guys are starting to see that. So for those of you that want to know a bit more about the game and what to expect, today we're going to talk more specifically about the monsters that we experienced during our hands-on preview time. So if you guys do enjoy this, a like would be super appreciated. Let me know in the comments down below, what type of monsters would you like to see in Wild Hearts? I know it might sound kind of generic, but we kind of still do need to have some sort of wyvern type monster in this game because it just needs to be done. I want to fight like a big ass earth sort of tree style dragon. That would be hella cool. But anyway, with that being said, let's begin. First things first, in this game, the monsters in Wild Hearts are called Kemono, and they're powerful creatures that used to be peaceful until, for some unknown reason, they started to go on a rampage in Azuma. And one of the cool things is that while all the monsters we've seen so far are based on real-world creatures like rats, wolves, gorillas, things like that, they also have an underlying theme of roots and nature after undergoing an evolution by fusing with their environments. In fact, the game itself says this about the Kemono: history has long forgotten why the Kemono are so desperate. The once peaceful beasts are now at a rampage, and although you are a visitor to these lands, Azuma needs your help. You must stop them from wreaking havoc and bring back balance to this world. The Kemono have undergone a unique evolution by fusing with their environments. They wield the power of nature to reshape their surroundings to suit their needs. You will encounter creatures of all sizes, from plant-infused squirrels to the massive beasts, who all have their very unique combat patterns. And the Kemono's fusion with the environment is even more visible when they become enraged, because they'll sprout huge plant-like structures and change their attack patterns. And in the preview build that we got access to, there were 3 Kemono to fight: Ragetail, Sapscourge, and King Tusk. So let's quickly go through each of them. Ragetail, first up, the one that I like to call Sakura Rat. This was the smallest of the monsters in the preview, and one of the first ones you actually get to fight in the game. And if you're a Monster Hunter player, this is kind of like your equivalent to Great Jagras. It's of course based on a rat, or maybe also a squirrel, but it does of course have the distinct feature of its tail being fused with nature, having a large flower pod that it uses for massive attacks. This is basically like a huge sort of mace or maul on its tail, which looks really cool and of course is quite devastating. For the attacks themselves, with Ragetail, there's sort of a combination strategy here of like small attacks with larger ones for a sort of hit and run method of play. When you get familiar with this monster, one of the most noteworthy things is that you can actually build up little sort of stacks of crates to basically make it flinch, knock it down. This doesn't necessarily apply to absolutely every monster, but some of the smaller ones, you can actually use those crates, the sort of karakuri, to your advantage to basically block some incoming moves. But typically, you have a few sort of fast, flurrying, swiping attacks with the little sort of rat hands. Meanwhile, the ones you really want to watch out for are when it does the bigger, slower, sort of more impactful tail slams, because these will, despite the fact that it is an easier creature, still dish out some decent damage. Of course, if you have played hunting style games before, I will say this creature won't present too much of a challenge. However, it does do a good job of introducing you to the game, to the systems. It of course is your first introduction to building seamlessly in combat, so it definitely has plenty of sort of nice openings and more predictable move patterns that allow you to read it and therefore place down blocks to really sort of get on top of those mechanics. What I will say though is what I do really like about this creature, and again sort of all the creatures in the game, is how they change the environment when they go enraged. And in this one, when it does enter the enraged state, this massive sort of cherry blossom tree sprouts from behind it, which looks really, really cool, and of course will in the moment also block some sort of movement. So this definitely is a spectacle even from a much smaller creature. But all in all, pretty easy beginner monster that will show you the ropes, but also kind of good if you want to test some weapons, because you can use this to wail on. However, moving on from there, we then have Sapscourge, the one that, in truth, actually gave me the most trouble in the demo. This is the only monster that I actually triple carded to once. From the first time looking at this thing, I wasn't necessarily too sure what animal this was based on, but it does kind of look like a raccoon with a sort of destructive sap on it, and the sap is shown by the glowing orange areas around the body, giving it a distinctive look. This also, of course, translates into some of the armor pieces and the weapons. In the order of the preview, this was the second Kemono that you fight, but again, from our experience, this was definitely the most difficult. Sapscourge not only hits hard, but also has a lot of different attacks that inflict large amounts of stun, so often you get surprised and it then comes barreling towards you, and you are literally left vulnerable. And also, the stun definitely seems to last a lot longer than other games in this genre, so it definitely isn't a great state to be in if Sapscourge is coming your way. But I will say, this is, even though it has a lot of predictable moves, because it is quite large, this is definitely like the medium-sized monster. It rolls around a lot and it has quite a large hitbox, so a lot of the times when you think you might be safe, you're actually not. The actual sap that it throws on you will also slow you down, so typically you will use the springboard to shake off this sap. But much like a lot of the other creatures, there are of course things you can break off. You can break off the horns in this one, you can cut off the tail. There's definitely some fun ways to interact with it, but once you do get a feel for it, it's actually not too bad. But then moving on from there, we then have the final one you fight in the demo. This is kind of meant to sort of be the showcase one, and this is King Tusk, the giant bulldrome, if you will. He is absolutely massive. It's actually quite a good way to sort of showcase the game, because you start with the rat, which is your tiny monster, not much bigger than you. You then of course have Sapscourge, which is your mid-tier monster, and then you have King Tusk, which is your large one. And also, if you reference the trailer, there's even a gigantic one, so I do like the fact that there are some really varied sizes of monsters. But King Tusk, again, as it is a larger monster, it is one of the best ways to sort of show off the hunter arm mechanics, because players are able to mantle the creature, extract the sort of category energy, which is really cool. Like, some of these smaller monsters will still have this. You'll often see this glowing blue sort of green turquoise orb on the side of it. If you can clamber onto the side of the monster, hold on, and then pull out the energy, it'll actually give you a boost to your category meter, allowing you to construct more devices. But on King Tusk, these are incredibly prevalent and definitely do stand out a lot more, and it's a lot easier to sort of pull these off, because trying to climb on the side of a tiny rat isn't always as viable. Movement wise, this monster has a lot of wide sweeping attacks, but one of its most devastating attacks is the charge, which you can actually block by using the Karakuri Bulwark, which is a structure specifically designed to repel this attack. The first time you ever fight this monster, you actually get a sort of a inspiration moment where basically you learn in combat how to craft this bulwark for the first time, and then after that you basically construct it. It's like this sort of a Naruto style wall that you use to kind of, if you think back about some of the fights, using this to block some of the insanely powerful projectiles. If he then runs into this one, it is a guaranteed knockdown on the monster, and then of course you can then wail on it for some damage. And of course, when it's enraged, King Tusk again will change the environment, roots will sprout all over the ground, and of course this giant sort of tree-like structure comes out as well, so it really can block off the arena. It's actually a really cool fight. Of course, being much larger, it's not as nimble as other monsters, but again, that large hitbox will still see you get caught, will dish out a bunch of damage, and again, if you do not put respect on him, he definitely will kill you. But for the most part, that is pretty much it. Little look at some of the monsters, or the Kemono we had a chance to fight in the game so far. Let me know in the comments down below what you guys think. Let me know if you guys got any more questions. If you've missed some of the recent videos, you can check out one of these ones, and keep it locked for plenty more.